Welcome to Mentalk Ubuntu Podcast. Our guest this episode is an inspirational leader and lady who wears many hats marvelously and has the midas touch. A mother, wife, solicitor, entrepreneur, mentor, public speaker, and dear friend. Courageously and consistently stretching her comfort zone. Rumbi, it's a pleasure to have you here. Please tell us about your story and journey.
Hi everyone, my name is Rumbi. I am a mum, a wife, a lawyer, and with all the other things that Shayaminda has said. But a little bit about me and where I'm from. Well, I'm actually originally from Zimbabwe. Started business with law, did a whole bunch of stuff, failed and failed again, and kept trying until I finally got there. So where I am today, I am also a podcaster. I do a lot of mentoring on the side. I am also the CEO of a couple of companies. And I do some consultancy as well for my legal background. So I do a lot of things, but you might call me a jack of many trades. Hopefully I'm a master of at least maybe one or two of those, but not all of them. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Rumbi. That goes beautifully into today's topic. So today's topic is basically about adding value. You know, as you said in your intro, you know, speaks many volumes of the way you're adding value. But first, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you mentally?
Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably say I'm a 9. Why? Because I recently offloaded a very big load off my shoulders. Maybe this is probably for another podcast that's coming out, so I'm not got a spoiler alert. But yeah, I had a massive load on my shoulders, and I finally talked to my parents about it, and boy, did it help. It lifted that load off. So mentally, I literally was, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I probably was a 3. But now, funny enough, I'm at a 9. Yeah. So I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm quite happy and really just loving it, to be honest, at the moment.
I mean, that's fantastic to hear. Your smile is at a 9.5, so I'm sure you've been on your way to higher numbers right now. So we won't go into your current shift from a 3 to a 10. That's fine. But I'm curious about what your mental health story would be, if there's one from your past, either for yourself or someone else, that's shaped you or your views
That's a
on
very
mental
good
health.
question. Do you know, it's actually one that's probably lived with me for a very long time. And maybe a few people might relate to it. I think 80% of my life, I was one of those people who kept on being told, she couldn't do that. You know, I mean, one funny thing, and I'll tell you, in nursery, one of the nursery teachers told my mum that I was actually retarded and should have gone to a special school because I was very slow. And basically, my mum would not hear it. And she was like, I don't believe you. How dare you? I'm taking my child out of this nursery school. And I did not know that within herself, she carried that. You know, this is a teacher telling her, your child is slow. You need to think about moving her on to a special class. And she didn't tell me that until the day I graduated. And she said there was a teacher who said that to you. But it's funny, but now I laugh about it. But when I think about all the times when a lot of people have written me off because i.e. maybe I've had to try something more than once. That's been, it's, you know, you hear voices all the time that say to you, oh, you're not good enough. And once you keep hearing it over and over again, you start to think, am I really not that good enough? You know, but it takes courage to pull yourself out from that perspective of people writing you off and thinking you're not good enough and proving them wrong at the end of the day. And I'd like to say and think over the years that I've been able to do that. There's a lot of things that I would have been able to just go, yeah, I'm not really good enough, and just given up. You know, being a lawyer, for one, I was told my voice was too small, too tiny compared to other people. I wasn't as brave. I couldn't articulate myself as they could, you know. So many things where you think, oh, I'm below average, you know. But I have no idea how I got here. I will be honest with you. I think it was just being, you know, trying to block those negative energies out more than anything, just trying to prove to myself that no, Rumbi, you can do this, even though at times it does demotivate you and make you feel like, you know, you're worthless. But something in me just kept on driving me. And I'd like to think maybe it's got something to do with my parents. Just, they always just believed in me. I didn't know why, but they did. So that really helped. So I think out of everyone, I just wanted to make them proud more than anything. So they were probably that inner force inside of me, but not everyone's got that option. You know, I was just lucky to have them with me to do that, to go through that journey with me and see me become the woman I am now. And even till today, if I tell them I want to do something, they're always the first people to support me. So I think mentally, that would be my biggest win. But yeah. I hope that answers your question.
I mean, I don't mean to interject, but like as you said that, the penny just dropped for me, because even my own mother actually, you know, mentioned something quite similar to me. But this was with an experience that, so growing up for me, education was never my strong point whatsoever. And I didn't find out I was dyslexic until a very later period in my life. But nonetheless, I wasn't aware until a few years ago. My mum actually mentioned that. Hold on a minute. She said that she carried the same burden, where someone said to her that your child is slow, is this, is that, so on. Just, you know, putting me down and comparing me to all the other kids, kind of thing. But she held that within her and never even mentioned it to me until a few years ago. But, you know, I think you're definitely right. When you kind of see that, hear that, it kind of ignites a flame inside of you that you didn't even know you had inside you. And just to hear your journey and what you're also doing in all spectrums, you know, it makes so much sense. It makes really so much sense. So I mean, like, what would you say is, you know, because obviously you mentioned that, you know, your parents are the biggest win, and obviously you've also got a beautiful daughter as well. What else would you say ignites you from, let's say, for instance, when you're in the zone of a free, going through whatever you're going through, even though you don't know what the outcome's going to be, for you to
that's a
come out
very
alive?
good one as well. And, you know, I think it just ties back in with that idea of, you know, a mother being told that, you know, your child's not good enough. And then your mum carrying that burden for so long and wondering, or maybe not wondering, but just ignoring that and believing that their child is, you know, going to be someone special. And I'm not going to lie to you, it sounds so cliche, but it's true that the day you hold that child in your hands, something just ignites you that you didn't know you had. You want to protect that child. You want to provide for them. You literally see them being the next prime minister of the UK. You know? It's like you and you want to make sure you get them there. So, and I just start to ask myself, what is the one thing I can do to make sure my daughter has the best in life to get her to where she needs to be? And if that means I have to work 3 jobs and I have to do you know what I mean? I need to, it keeps on pushing me that I want to make sure she gets the best education, she gets the best upbringing, she grows in the right environment, she's got her family with her, she's got everything she needs to get her to that next level. So that's what I always keep thinking. It's the one thing that just lit up for me. Like, I need to start this out. I need to sort this out. I need to do this. We've got a baby now. I need to get this right. Before I lived life happy-go-lucky, I literally was a happy-go-lucky person until I realized, oh, can I swear on this podcast? Probably not. But yeah, like, oh shit, I'm having a baby and we have no place to stay, so it's things like that. Like, yeah, it makes you think, right? You've got someone who depends on you and you're the one who's going to provide for them. So yeah, I mean, I had to just get my life in order. And I think that was my second biggest driving force, was that little girl, so that she can see me work hard, so she can work hard, but at the same time provide for her and give her what she needs to be that person. What about you guys?
Yeah, that all of that, everything you no, everything you're saying definitely resonates with me. But I'll let Shai answer that, because I was going to ask you something else, but I'll hold fire for a sec.
Ask
Now, that's not fair, Ray. I'm the only one here without kids.
This is a safe
I'm sick of this
space.
happening, right?
Exactly. It's okay, Shai.
All I wanted to add to that, since I have no little bambino or bambina of my own, is that having had the privilege of meeting Rumbi's mom and been around her family, what I can say is that the apple fell very close to the tree. And to hear you say so beautifully that Sophie is now pretty much your world, and you're going to replicate the example that you were shown and probably excel at it as well. From the way, like I said, you got that midas touch, the way you amplify everything you put your mind to. It's a wonderful thing to hear about motherhood in that way. And I do also want to get into motherhood and how perhaps that's affected your mental health. We've heard about the amazing drive it's ignited within you. But before we get to that, I do want to hear something else about your mental health story. I want to hear something about the lows, because you mentioned a beautiful word, which is courage, the courage to try these things. And I want an example of you demonstrating this courage, but I'd like that with where you had to apply it, the moment that was low at some point, because it seems your mom shielded you, like Ray, from some of those earlier potentially negative experiences. So I want to hear one where you were exposed,
and you know what? There's a
and
downside to being shielded like that, because you don't have a firm grasp of the reality until it hits you, like bam, like wow, this is life, And one of those things was literally motherhood. They don't sugarcoat it in medical science how much of a toll pregnancy, or even just being a new mother is. There's postpartum depression and things like that. For me, in culture, I don't know you guys if you've got something similar, but in our culture, you get to, if it's your first child, for the first 2 weeks or something after you've given birth, you stay with your mum, and basically your mum is like helping you, showing you the ropes and how to take care of a baby and all that stuff. Me being so modern, I was adamant that I was not going to do that. I would stay at my house with my husband, and we would do all the night feeds and do everything, just like how modern parents do it. Like, I wanted us to be hands-on. I was like, no, mom, we'll be fine. Until the week I went into labor, I had a severe down feeling. Like, I just wanted to cry, and it's hormonal, but I'll be telling you, like, I felt so low. I never felt the lowest, and it just took my dad calling me and just saying, "How are you today?" And I just broke down in tears for no reason. It was just like, "You need to come home." And I just said, "Okay," and hung up. And the first thing I said to my husband was, "I am going home. You can stay, but I'm going." It wasn't anything to do with him or anything, but I just felt a sudden low. And But then fast forward after the 2-3 weeks being at my parents after, my little ones arrived, we finally get to go home. And that was the first time I was really, truly on my own with a newborn in our own house. And that modern parenting just went out the window because I had no idea how to do it. I just felt you feel like you're the worst parent in the world for not being able to bathe your daughter, for not being able to, cook whilst you've got a little one. I mean, people were coming, I was in my 90s the whole day. Like, that's how bad it was. Like I just felt like I'd failed. I think that was the very first time I just thought, I don't think I'm cut out for this. Honestly, I'm going to be the worst person in the world. I just can't raise this child. How am I going to do it? So it was a few weeks of feeling and being embarrassed to share that I'm struggling, because you don't want to tell people you're struggling. They'll just think, well, you know, you're supposed to, you're a woman, you're a mum, you should be able to do this. How can you not do this? But one thing, I think the courage for me was then I quickly realized, you know what? I need to do what works for me and what works for me and my baby to be able to thrive. It's okay. I've not had a shower in 3 days. It's okay. I'm still in my 90s for 3 days. But as long as I've fed her, as long as she's healthy, as long as I can say, I've done everything I can. And if I fail, I need to be able to pick up the phone and say help, or I need to be able to say, I'm hungry. Can you make me some food? I think it was part of it was pride, but at the same time, it was just, I don't want to be seen to be failing. So, but in doing that, I was sabotaging myself and I was getting into that low depressive mode where I just felt a failure. Like literally failure was the word of the day in my head, literally for about 2-3 weeks, until I don't know what it was, but I just thought, you know what, Rumbi, that little girl has woken up, she's been fed, and she's fine, and she's got clothes on her back. That's the most important thing. Everything else will fall secondary to that, third to that. And that's how I got myself out of that cycle. But that was a baptism of fire, if you call it. And I'm sure most mums will relate to that. And even dads as well, because, as much as I'm thinking I was the only one in that experience, but my husband was going through something similar in his own way, in his own world. And I'm sure he can tell you a whole big story of how, what was going on in his head. But seeing me so upset would probably make him feel like, oh, I'm not doing something right. But yeah, it's a journey. It's truly a journey.
You're definitely right. It is definitely a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's a journey. It's a learning experience, and I've learned even, my daughter's what, 11 going on 21, but even when she was born, little did I know that I already gathered like a lot of traits, because I've got a lot of cousins and siblings where we're really, really close. So I grew up, and obviously I was the firstborn. So essentially, I was the one who was looking after them, feeding them, changing their nappies. And little did I know those little things I was doing would actually pay off in my future
Yeah.
history when I have my daughter. And I think that made it it made me much more prepared, as in the sense, because my mother wasn't a stone throw away. She was like 200 miles away. So I think in terms of my input and me, helping and supporting her mum, but both of them collectively, I think that early part really played a big role in terms of, me stepping into fatherhood, even though I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I would, not change that for the world whatsoever. But one thing I would really love to know, because you mentioned culture. So I would love to know, in terms of culture, from a mental health kind of perspective, from your parents, how mental health was, or if it was ever, spoken about or talked about, or if it was seen as, again, from where we're from, it's seen if mental health, you should be in a mental institution. And, if that perspective ever changed, like, you coming into the Western hemisphere. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to kind of understand where that mental health journey was at home culturally, where it is now, and where it's also going to be, portrayed to your daughter as well.
Yeah. And that's a very, very, very good question. I'm glad you asked that, because back in Zimbabwe, mental health isn't a thing. Mental health just isn't a thing. If you're feeling depressed or anything like that, what's depression? That's literally the answer you get. What's depression? Just get on with it. Especially even if it's in marriage or in anything. If you're going through a mental breakdown, you're just being told to be strong. That is the term. There's a word in Shona which I absolutely loathe, which is shingirira, which just basically means be strong. You're a woman, you have to be strong. And my grandmother still has the saying that a woman is like a goat. She suffers whilst on her knees. I don't know if you've ever seen a goat, but if a goat's in pain, it will just go on its knees, but it will continue doing whatever it needs to do. So my grandmother was basically saying, yeah, if you're going to be in pain, but you're a woman, so you'll ride through that pain, you have to be strong. So I don't like that culture, and I'm so thankful we're here, because it's opened my parents' eyes to seeing those issues with mental health. I just fear what it could have been like if we were still in Africa. But because they're more, aware of those issues and what happens, and if I say to them, trust me, guys, I know you want this for me as a wife or as a mother, but for my mental health, I cannot and I will not do this, because I will struggle. And they'll just have to listen and accept that, because what matters is, I've realized what matters most is taking care of you. If you take care of your brain, if you're okay, it's not going to feed off to your child. And this is one thing that, over the years I didn't understand, but there were so many things that my parents were going through. And because they came home with that depression, with that anger, with that anxiety, it fed off us. And it made us grow. I grew. I couldn't talk to my parents. It's things like that. Like I remember what our house was like. It was just, you couldn't talk about certain things. You couldn't open yourself up to just sit down and say, "Oh, mommy, I feel like this," because of that. But it's only after now that we start to talk about these things, and you realize, oh my gosh, you had to get help, but you didn't get help, and because of that, it fed off to your children. But I'm glad I'm seeing this and we're talking about it, because now I realize I need to make sure I fix my head and my mental well-being, because if it's not right, it's going to feed off to my daughter without me even realizing. So it's something that I've noticed, that even now, if someone asks me to do something that's beyond my means or my capacity, and I'll be too stressed to do it, I have to say no, because the next thing is I'll probably break down, and someone's going to get the brunt of it, unfortunately, because that's how it works. That's what happens usually. So that's what I've noticed with our culture. It just doesn't have that room to allow you to feel those things. But having our eyes opened and being in the Western world, it's really helped. When I talk to some of my family, they do still laugh. I'm like, well, what was she on about? But I think it's all going to be an educational thing that has to go on for years and years, and people start getting used to hearing about mental health in Africa, and actually be proactive and actually be open-minded to know that this is a thing. So yeah, it's sad, but it's the reality, unfortunately, especially where I come from.
Thank you for listening to Mentalk Ubuntu Podcast and being a valued member of our community. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube, Instagram, and other social media now for access to our latest updates. DM us and let us know what your mental health is on a scale of 1 to 5. Thank you.
Profoundly insightful. And I think eloquently put together right there. Like, my mind was a buzz as, in fact, both of you spoke. It struck me that these are some of the themes that have emerged from a lot of the conversations we've had, which shows that although, say, our podcast primarily tries to focus on Black men and the perceptions people have of Black men and mental health, these are very much human issues. And to hear it from a young Black, shall we say, beautiful woman as well, just shows you how even in the midst of something as wonderful as having your first child and the beauty that comes with that, all the love we speak about, this was the example of one of the lowest moments because of how it affected you personally and the thoughts that came with this. I think whenever we care about something, really care about something, we want to do it so well that stresses us out. Everyone knows that. Like, if you don't care, whatever. And that little bundle of joy you care about, you love to life and you love to death. So I've not even thought about that, like how that would make someone feel, like how you would feel like you're letting that child down. And when we factor in what Ray was bringing in, the culture of we have to be strong. We come from a proud people, hold your head up. The goat one killed me. I was laughing inside silently still. but this idea that you're strong, it will cause dissonance. Like, if you're taught to see yourself as strong and you're not able to share that, especially with some of the people who would be in your circle, such as your parents or your siblings even, and you hit this moment of extreme vulnerability and thinking, I'm going to be the worst parent in the world. I mean, just that thought, sitting with that thought for a minute, like, you're then questioning everything you believe about yourself. It feels like, because you would have been raised to be the strong person, and now you're faced with feeling like you're going to fail at something. I can't even imagine that. Like, I love the advice, which was very simple, where you answered the question about courage. And it was as simple as the focus goes to, and this little one is the priority. First thing she needs is this. You don't focus on, I can't even wash her because the neck, all sorts of things happen. It's a scary time. And you focus on, for you, it's just focusing on safety. For everyone else, maybe you don't have a child like me. Maybe focus on you first and foremost and think, what do I need? Not in a selfish and egotistical way, but genuinely, what do I need to feel better and to look after myself? If you have a business, then make the business the priority. If you have the job, then switch that. So I love that advice, because we might think that courage is this crazy thing we have to do. We have to go out and do a Tough Mudder or white collar boxing or something. And I think courage, the focus goes to Sophie, and this little one is the priority. First thing she needs is this. You don't focus on, I can't even wash her because the neck, all sorts of things happen. It's a scary time. And you focus on, for you, it's just focusing on Sophie. For everyone else, maybe you don't have a child like me. Maybe focus on you first and foremost and think, what do I need? Not in a selfish and egotistical way, but genuinely, what do I need to feel better and to look after myself? If you have a business, then make the business the priority. If you have the job, then switch that. So I love that advice, because we might think that courage is this crazy thing we have to do. We have to go out and do a Tough Mudder or white collar boxing or something. And I think courage, I can't remember the full quote. It might be Winston Churchill. I don't know. It's something like knowing the obstacles are almost insurmountable, but choosing to go forward and pursue them anyway. Something along those lines. And there's no manual for being a mother or a father, and choosing to do it and try and do it to the best of your ability is incredible. So I
Yeah. And
commend you
I
for
like
that.
that you're
I really
saying,
love that.
sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt you because you just mentioned
With
one thing as well that I forgot, which was focusing on you. If I told you that that penny for me only dropped literally 2 months ago to take care of me, all these past few years, I kind of forgot me, you know, and it was more of, yeah, take care of the baby, make sure the baby's fine, go to work, do all these things. Yeah, they're fun, but what about me, And I just thought to myself, no, you know what? I need to be more selfish with me. Um, not necessarily saying, leave everything and just focus on you, but there's a bit of selfishness that's required, which is why now I've started saying, I know this is what you expect of me, um, as a wife or as a mother or as whatever you need me to do, but I need to remember me first. This is literally something that's just happened in the last few months for me. And it was a revelation because it's made me look at a lot of things a lot more differently. I think it was the other day someone was mentioning, body shaming me for gaining weight. And I was like, you have no idea how happy I am. I've gained a bit of weight. Yes, I acknowledge that, but I am the happiest I've ever been. So honestly, but it was said in a lighthearted way, but I was just like, yeah, but do you realize to someone else that could be really detrimental? You're lucky that you found me in a very good place. I'm so happy. So I'm not going to listen to it. I'm focusing on my happiness more than anything. So it's been the best thing I've ever done. And I just wish I'd done it sooner. And, it's taken me so long to do that. But it does help to focus on you and put yourself first as well sometimes, because we really do need that. It's such a breath of fresh air when you do.
I totally second that. I've also had a lot of realization and pennies drop left, right, and center, and you pretty much, because you're consistently going, and everybody else but you is important. And essentially, what you find is that even when you're at your free, it's a very low free, and it could even be lower than free anyway. And this is where there's that saying: if you don't love or care about yourself enough, how can you do the same to anyone else? So it's so, and this happens so easily to anyone and everyone, even the people listening. It happens to everyone. You forget yourself. You are, yes, everybody else and your children are important, but if you don't put yourself first, you will not be able. It just goes with health. If you're not looking after your health, how are you going to be able to look after and love the people tomorrow? How are you going to be, if you don't look after your mind or feed yourself the right things, how are you going to have the right mindset to help, support, add value to the people around you? So, yeah, you're right. You hit the nail on the head on that one.
Curious. I've been here thinking about Rumbi adding value, and that's why I was even thinking this is a perfect, right? Because as I think I said to you, I see you adding value in all these other ways, and it's only now I've then realized I didn't think about you adding value to yourself.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so easy to forget yourself.
Okay, so the penny dropped for you. Let's try and help the penny drop for someone out there, someone listening. Wow. We won't direct it at someone listening because I wanted to direct it to that person who probably needs prayer, who just came up and said in jest, like, yo, be careful. That's not how we roll, people. Come on now. We'll switch it and say, you'll know at which point in your life perhaps it would have been beneficial at that point. We can't change the past, but at that point, you'll know which version of you earlier may have perhaps needed the most to love themselves. Now, you don't need to tell us when that was or what was going on, but if you were facing that version of you at that point, what advice would you give to that younger person so they know to add value to themselves as well as to love themselves?
There's that one particular person at that particular point. Jeez, I'm having an outer body experience looking at that person, that particular moment. If I tell you, that was probably the lowest of the low for that particular person. But what I would say to someone who's lost everything, and when I say everything, I mean lost everything, and they're questioning their existence, because that it makes you get to a stage. You might be at that stage where a big traumatic event has just happened, that in that happening has made you lose so much more than you thought you even had. Things you didn't realize you had, and you starting to lose them one by one, and those you're left holding crumbs from a whole piece of bread you had. And when that happens, the only thing I can say is, do not underestimate what you can do. If you were able to mold, and I'm using a loaf because I said you're left with crumbs. I'm going to use that metaphor and I'll carry on with it. If you were able to mold that flour and add all those ingredients to it to make that loaf of bread, such that even because of a mistake or something that you did or someone else did, and you ended up with crumbs, believe me, you can bake another loaf of bread. You can start again. It doesn't have to be today, because I think there is power in grieving and going through that process. Trust the process. So don't think of just picking yourself up. Just go through the motions. Whatever your situation is, take the time you need to heal, because once you've healed, only is when you'll be able to rise again and rebuild. And trust me, because you've got all the tools, you've got the knowledge, you know how you built everything, you can build it up again. So if it's about to fall, let it fall. If it's beyond your control and you're seeing everything crumbling, let it crumble. Don't try and grab it all and try and put it back together with sellotape and everything. If it's already fallen, just accept it that it's fallen and rebuild when you're ready. And that's the advice I would give. And I know I would have needed that. Probably I wouldn't have believed a word that person was saying, to be honest with you, because you probably have a lot of anger. But trust the process. That's all I can say. Trust it. Mm-hmm. You guys are going to make me cry, seriously. Oh my gosh.
Rumbi, it's a safe place. It's a safe place.
Yeah.
I really, really, really loved the metaphor you used for the loaf of bread. And I think that's the thing about life. You have to let things literally disrupt you, destroy you, for you to gather all the necessary ingredients, pieces, but more importantly, just taking the time to just stop, immerse yourself in those feelings and go past it. Because if you don't, it's not gonna end well, put it that way. And more importantly, you also need to have people around you to kind of just listen to you, not necessarily give you advice, but sometimes we have to go through things by ourselves. And there's magic in rebuilding, because just from crumbs, we previously had a loaf of bread and was like, yeah, I buttered it, it was nice, it doesn't get any better than this. And you come to the point where you lose everything. that rebuilding, next thing you know, you've got all the necessary ingredients to build a cake. And that cake is bigger than you, bigger than anything. And this is so amazing. So amazing about life is that, you know, no matter what life's test you with, is that, you know, it goes back to that burning, igniting desire within to, you know, overcome everything. And it just makes you even more stronger. So what I would ask is that, how can I put this? What would you say that people can learn, obviously, other than taking the time to, you know, reflect, immerse themselves after that process? What can they learn in terms of adding more value, you know, not just to themselves, but also to the world as well?
I mean, I can only draw from my own. Yeah.
Just the same way
I
you
can
add
only
value to the world.
draw from my own experience on this one. And I don't know, I derived so much pleasure from helping. You have no idea. The amount of the industry I'm in has so much competition. No one will share their knowledge. You know, in any industry, people are very, very, very apprehensive about sharing their knowledge. And one way I found to add value, especially when it comes to someone struggling, you've been there, you know how to build, you know how to do something. And for me, it was always, why don't you share that knowledge? And I will gladly share it for free because no one person can do it the same. You know, in you helping someone add value to their life in whatever way it is. For me, I think helping is the best thing. I derive so much pleasure from it. Just seeing someone succeed and knowing, yeah, I helped that person get through that time and look at them now. Oh my gosh, without any accolades or taking any credit or anything, just seeing them prosper and succeed. It's, you know, like I get so happy. That's just generally who I am. And I found that was my calling. That was truly my calling. And people will look at me like I'm crazy sharing so many of my own industry secrets, how I started something, how I did something. And I'm like, well, why is it a secret to begin with? So every single time I see something, I'm always so quick to just share. It might help someone out there, and that person might need that information at that particular time. Um, it's it just takes just opening your mouth and sharing that knowledge, imparting that little gem that helped you when you needed it the most. Someone else needs it. So if it's adding value to someone's mental health by sharing what helped you get out of something, how you got out of that funk, how you managed to rise from your ashes, it might not help them, but they might share it with someone who's got the exact same situation as you and say, you know, I spoke to Rumbi the other day and she told me that she went through this. This is what she did. You know, I'm happy. You know, my job is done. So that's my advice to someone on how you can add value. You don't have to be a know-it-all in anything or a professional in anything. It's just imparting the little advice you have. Don't tell people what to do, but share your experience because you have no idea who could be helped by that experience you're sharing. So we do a lot when we talk about things. You don't realize, even just sharing your experience, someone will be like, oh my gosh, I went through the exact same thing. And it allows them to open up. It's helped for me. Someone opened up to me about something that happened to them, and that allowed me to open up my experience. So it's a very big tool we have, and talking is the biggest way of sharing and adding value. So I would recommend everyone, let's get talking.
Hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed creating.
Don't forget to follow, like, share, and connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn
Subscribe to our latest episode and listen to any you missed. And tune in next episode.
Take care.